so this video is all about biomolecules. What is a biomolecule? Well, if you break that word up into two words, you have bio and molecule. Bio means life, molecule means molecule. So biomolecules are the molecules of life. In other words, biomolecules are the molecules that make up living things. Now, you may think that living things, being as diverse and complicated as we are made up, it must take a bunch of different molecules coming together to make all living things. And yes, while there are a bunch of different molecules, there's really only 4 different kinds of molecules. And those are the 4 different kinds that we're going to talk about today. And those 4 different molecules are only made up of just a handful of elements. So living things, as diverse and complex as they are actually fairly simple. So let's talk about what the 4 molecules of life are, or biomolecules. There are 4 types of molecules that make up all living things on Earth. These are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. So these 4 molecules, once again, these are categories of molecules. There are many different types of each of these molecules, but there are only 4 different kinds. Okay, it's like if there's 4 different automobile makers, but each automobile maker makes many different kinds of automobiles. Okay, but at the end of the day, there's only 4 companies making these automobiles. Just like in your body, there's only 4 categories of molecules that make up all living things. So the common name for a carbohydrate, we call that a carb, right? When you eat food, you talk about how many carbs are in this candy bar or this loaf of bread. Lipids are fats. That's another thing you will be looking for on that nutrition label of whatever it is that you're eating. Proteins are just called proteins. And nucleic acids are just called nucleic acids. Okay. So the common name for these 2 is the same as their actual name. And over here, carbs are carbohydrates and fats are lipids. Okay, that's what you know them as. Now, monomer. What is a monomer? Well, a monomer, mono means 1, by the way, and mer is talking about, like in chemistry, a molecule of something. So a monomer is a single molecule. So carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids, these are what we call macromolecules. Macro means big. Macromolecules are huge molecules that are made up of many smaller molecules linked together. And each of those smaller molecules is a monomer. So we're talking about one single molecule of this giant molecular chain. What is that called? And in carbohydrates, that's called a saccharide. In lipids or fats, a single molecule of this giant chain of molecules is called a fatty acid. Proteins are a giant chain of molecules. One individual molecule in that chain is called an amino acid. Nucleic acids are a giant chain of molecules. One individual molecule in that chain is called a nucleotide. Okay. Function. What are the functions of these 4? Each one has its own unique function. Carbohydrates are the primary source of energy. Okay, and that's going to be short term. So when carbs go into your body, they are the first things to get burned. That's your body's preferred choice of energy is from carbohydrates. So it's going to burn that before it burns anything else. Now what doesn't get burned from the carbs gets stored in your body for long-term energy storage as a lipid or a fat. This is why your body accumulates fatty tissue. If you're consuming too much energy or more energy than you need, then your body will store that extra energy as fats. Now, it's not just long-term energy storage. I don't have a lot of room to write here. There's other things that lipids do. They make up the membranes of your cells. Every cell in your body has a membrane, and those membranes are also made up of lipids, okay? So just, I'm going to write it in here, but you probably won't be able to see it. Membranes. Cell membranes are also made up of lipids, okay? Proteins. So proteins have a variety of jobs. It's hard to say the one single function that proteins have because they do so many different things. It's like saying, what do people do? Well, people do a lot of different things. Proteins are like the people of your body. There's many different kinds of people on the planet. There's many kinds of jobs that each of those people do, and they're so diverse you can't really say that they do one thing, okay? But basically every job in your body, everything that gets done in your body, proteins have some part in it for the most part. Okay, so proteins are just a very wide variety of molecules, and they each do a lot of different things and have different jobs in your body. But nucleic acids, their job is to store genetic information. This is information on how to build your body, and proteins are actually the information on how to build the protein is contained inside of these nucleic acids. Okay? So anything that has to do with how to do anything in your body, nucleic acids store the information for how to make anything that happens in your body happen. That's their job. Okay, elements. So what elements are involved in creating these things? Now you might think the elements on the periodic table, there's 118 currently. You might think that it takes a lot of different elements coming together to make these different molecules, but you'll actually be surprised to find out that it only takes 4. Some of these only take 3. Only one of these takes 4. So there's only 3 or 4 elements involved, different elements involved in creating every single thing in your body. And the elements for carbohydrates are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Lipids, also carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Proteins, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Okay? And nucleic acids have one extra that the others don't have, and that's that N on the end there, which is nitrogen. Okay? So 3 or 4 elements is all you need from the periodic table to make up every single living thing on the planet. All right, the shape. So the shape of carbohydrates are like a hexagon shape. At each corner here, there is a carbon atom. And then off of those carbons come hydrogen and oxygens that are bonded to those guys. But I'm not going to draw out the whole thing. Lipids have like a pitchfork shape. Once again, there are carbons here, and all the backbone of lipids is made up of carbon atoms, and then you have hydrogens and oxygens coming off of there as well. Once again, I'm not going to draw the whole thing. Proteins proteins are like long, it's like a pearl necklace almost. Okay, so proteins are these long chains of amino acids. That's an amino acid, that's an amino acid, that's an amino acid. And then you chain these together to make this long molecule, and that's the protein. But in reality, these proteins are actually very complicated shapes. They look like a knotted up piece of yarn or something. In nucleic acids, well, there's really only two shapes that nucleic acids could be. Either a double helix or a single helix. And examples of each of these, well, carbs. An example that you would know about is sugar. Any kind of sugar is going to be a carb, okay? Sugars and starches. Sugars and starches, like potatoes, those are starches. Any kind of starchy food is going to be a carbohydrate. Bread. Lipids, that's going to be like your fats, your oils, your butter. Okay, those are examples of lipids. Proteins. So we just learned last time, in the last video, we talked about something called enzymes. Enzymes are these things that speed up chemical reactions. Guess what? Those are proteins. So a lot of these things that do different jobs in your body are proteins. Okay, and enzymes is just one example of the vast array of proteins that are in your body. So nucleic acids, guess what? That's DNA and RNA. Okay. DNA is double-stranded, double helix. RNA is a single-stranded strand of genetic material. And so that is every molecule and the basic introductory information into the 4 biomolecules and the most of the time 3, but sometimes 4 elements that make those up.